Go on ahead, cue the lights. Yep, oh, there's one of them. You're doing your job too. Let's get a mic check. Steam Deck. Valve Steam Deck. VSD, not STD. There's a lot of misconceptions getting strewn about right now. Well, Kevin, that Steam Deck that you're talking about, that she gonna run about 30 frames per second. She gonna cap out 30 hertz with AAA titles. There's a simple solution. You simply don't understand PC hardware, my friend. Oh, Alexa, turn on my nose. There it is. There it is right there. Unlike that light, I'm not turned on by the comments that I'm seeing on my channel, on my buddies' channels, and just overall in the gaming community, because there's a whole slew of misconceptions around the performance of the Steam Deck. Some people overshooting it, saying it's going to play 4K 260 hertz with ray tracing on. What do you think? It's got 3090 under the hood? And then other people saying like, oh, it's going to play AAA titles at 30 frames per second capped at best. Now, if you want to blatantly ignore the tech specs on your own time, that's cool, but welcome to the gamer heaven. We're going to look at the facts here, boys. Let's get it. So I want to clear the air a little bit. Not that I farted or anything like that, but I just want to, I'm going to Febreze the air real quick. I don't have an issue when people ask a question if they are curious about the tech specs of a piece of gear. And, you know, by no means am I the end all be all resource, but I do several hours a day of research around these topics before I warm up the Sony a5100, or, you know, I don't do that with my mic usually, but before I fire up the Go XLR to, you know, make my mic hot and whatnot. If somebody's just curious, or even, you know, they disagree with my take on something, when it's opinion based, that makes sense. But when I'm blatantly explaining facts about a device, literal facts on a tech sheet, and people are like, nope, that's incorrect, 30 frames per second, what you gonna hit? And it's not a question, it's a statement. Generally, I just blow it off because it's like, okay, well, it's the internet. Everyone's an expert on everything, you know? Everyone's an expert on every topic. When it's several comments, that's when I have to take about 30 seconds before I actually start the juice, the meat and potato of my video with the actual content covering news articles, just to say, stop doing that. You're an idiot. You're making yourself look like an idiot in front of the gamer heaven community and myself, and it's just a bad look for you. Now, this is the sentence right here that people are really taking and running down the street and not coming back, basically. This is an article from Games Radar that was pointing out the fact that during IGN and Digital Foundry's hands-on testing of this new handheld PC, that they were able to run virtually every single game in the Steam library that they threw at it at 800p 30 hertz. And people are like, okay, cool, so the Steam Deck only hits 830? And that's totally fine if you saw that and you're like, well, that it does kind of read like that's gonna hit 830. But so many people are just taking it and making it solidified in stone that is what it runs at. Now let's move on to something that's a little bit more current here. This is a response from Pierlupe Grafies. I think I pronounced that correctly. The 30 FPS target, quote, refers to the floor, not the ceiling, not the middle of the room, the floor that they're walking on. Floor, the vinyl plank wood or whatever they have in their house, of what we're considering playable in our performance testing. Games we've tested and shown have consistently met and exceeded that bar thus far. There will also be an optional built-in FPS limiter to fine-tune performance versus battery life. When they say built-in, they mean baked in with the Steam OS, which is a Linux-based operating system specific to the Steam device. That's another misconception that I've seen, is that people are saying it's just Steam OS. It is a slightly different variation of Steam OS specifically for this piece of hardware, as it does have to have driver support for, well, the controls that are built onto the actual handheld device, the analog sticks, the touch pads, which are like mouse track pads, the triggers, the back paddles, there are 4 of them. All that has to have driver support. So when you go and install Windows 10 or something like that, which you can do, you're actually removing a bunch of features that are baked in, such as quick resume, driver support. As of now, there is no drivers for Windows 10 as far as like getting the controls on it working or anything. So if you just want to dock it or plug in a DP DisplayPort cable and run it off a monitor with a keyboard mouse, that with Windows 10, that's cool. But above all else, this is a gaming PC. It is a small form factor handheld Switch-like gaming PC. Yes, it has some console-like aspects, in my opinion, the fact that it has an APU. So it is a non-modular design. You can't remove or replace or upgrade the CPU, GPU, or RAM, because they are all one component called an APU or API in this case. Same, but different. And the fact that it does have controls built onto it, and it does have an optional sold separately dock and stuff, that's very console-like features. But at its core, it is a small form factor gaming PC, kind of like the Aya Neo or the GPD or the Win 3. There are other handheld gaming PCs out right now, but this is way better because those are literally just running a CPU with integrated graphics and basically off-the-shelf PC parts that were meant for a laptop, a gaming laptop, or a small form factor PC case, shoved into a very tiny case, which with all the cooling issues and stuff that come with that. This is built from the ground up with a proprietary APU that was built specifically for this rig. And just to real quick go over the tech specs, I've done it in previous videos, but this is very important stuff here. It's a Zen 2 4-core, 8-thread, 2.4 gigahertz at its base, up to 3.5 gigahertz in its boost when it's really under load. The GPU is running an RDNA 2 architecture, so because of this fact right here, this is going to have baked-in ray tracing capability, because that is a feature that is synonymous with RDNA 2. It's on all the new gen consoles, even the $300 budget banger Xbox Series S. Does the Series S use ray tracing in very many titles? No, because it only has 4 teraflops of power, just like this only has 1.6. So obviously it's not going to be pushing ray tracing at a locked 60 or anything like that. But with ray tracing off, having these specifications right here and some very quick memory, which I just covered in an article 2 days ago, is actually faster than we originally thought because it is quad channel, not dual channel like we initially thought. And it is fast as well. Plus there's 16 gigabytes of it. So quality and quantity, it's fast, and there is 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM. Now I got the whole squad with me right now. Rich is in the living room eating a bacon sandwich right now. Mad Little Pixels in the guest bathroom taking a dump, but let's see if they have anything to say about the topic.
But a lot of people were twisting the story and, oh, that's so disappointing. It could only play games at 30 FPS, even though I personally still consider that very impressive that a PC this size can play even high-end AAA games at 30 FPS at decent settings. Oh, that's not worth it. It's a ripoff, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate that, big dog. Pixel, you got anything to add?
We aren't gonna fully know the capabilities of this thing until we start seeing it, till it gets closer to release. Yeah, we've seen some minor test footage and whatnot. Things did look good, but once it's in the public's hands, that's when we'll get a better idea of, you know, if this is really a device for the people who are currently interested in it.
So here's the main takeaway here is the fact that this is a gaming PC. So much like any gaming PC, you can adjust settings. So obviously, if you're trying to prioritize a high frame rate because the game that you are playing would benefit more from a high frame rate. So it may be a racing game or a first-person shooter, especially a competitive online shooter, where frame rate's more important than sheer beautiful graphical fidelity, the most smooth textures, the longest draw distance, etc. You are going to be able to taper back settings, and granted, as long as you keep that baked-in SteamOS, Linux-based SteamOS, that is also going to be optimized. And as far as compatibility issues and whatnot, that was originally a big concern, even of mine, is that what games can you play on this? Because there was articles coming out saying that, you know, half of the top 10 games on Steam wouldn't play because of anti-cheat and whatnot. Well, there's a program called Proton that is baked into the operating system, which basically converts Windows 10 games to be playable on this Linux-based operating system. And so far, from what I've seen, read, watched videos on, it's pretty damn effective. We'll have to see about that though, boys. And one major thing to take into account that I don't think enough people are really talking about is even if you can run it at 60 hertz, there's a lot of situations where you're not going to want to. You're actually going to want to prioritize 30 frames per second, 30 hertz. Why is that? Well, battery life. If you're not playing at home where you're sitting in bed, but you're plugged into your wall charger for constant power and whatnot, if you're on the go, they were saying during their testing, IGN and Digital Foundry, that the battery life can get as low as 2 hours and then as high as 6 to 8 hours. That is a big fluctuation or deviation in battery life performance. And that was primarily on the backlight on the screen and then also the frames per second that they selected. Obviously, the different titles that you're playing would also slightly affect that as well, because obviously more demanding AAA titles and whatnot are going to be utilizing more of that CPU and GPU.
Kevin, the Valve Steam Deck is going to cap out at about 30 frames per second, ultra-low settings with judder and screen tearing.
Well, sir, I don't know where you've got your sources, but allow me to retort with my rebuttal. You're an absolute buffoon. And for a lot of the games that people are primarily saying they're going to be playing on the Steam Deck anyway, for example, retro games like these old consoles back here that you can emulate on this as it is a PC, or even older titles from your Steam library that you'd like to play on the go. Maybe I'd like to revisit Half-Life 2, as that's not a very graphically demanding game. It's not going to stress out the resources of the hardware, but it's very fun to play, especially on the go. And you're going to want to keep it at a locked or capped 60 frames per second. You don't want to play it on an uncapped frame rate or anything like that. The main reason being, well, the screen is 800p 60 hertz, as we see right here. Even if you can get a higher frame rate, as long as you're playing in the portable mode and you're not docked, as they are going to sell their little dock that'll cast it onto a monitor or TV, or you don't even need a dock period because you can literally video out via USB-C or the DP. There is a DisplayPort plug on the bottom as well, I believe. Oh, you guys can't even see what the frick I'm talking about. Yeah, so USB-C and a DisplayPort 1.4. So when you do cast it out to a screen, it will support up to 8K 60, which it's not going to hit that. I mean, obviously 4K 120, not going to hit that. Some very interesting numbers that it can support resolution output out of its DisplayPort up to these resolutions, hypothetically, in theory, with your lab coat and your beaker. Plus, we haven't even touched on the topic of overclocking yet. This is a PC, so you most likely are going to be able to overclock the APU. It is going to be kind of wonky because overclocking an APU, like trying to overclock a console, kind of hard because it's an APU, so you're overclocking the entire component, like the CPU and the GPU together, which generally require different voltages, might have different thermals. One gets hotter before the other, and that is another thing to take in consideration if you are going to be OCing this bad boy or overclocking it. Is definitely, it's in a very small form factor case, so cooling is going to be that is basically going to make overclocking not a thing, but it is in essence possible because it is a PC. But here again, we see 2 to 8 hours of gameplay, and that does come back to the fact that you can mess around with the frame rate. So if you're at the local pub sucking down a pint with your mates or something, and some guy stumbles up to you and says, "Hey, you get a Stream Deck, buddy? She's going to cap out at 30 hertz. What do you think about that?" You can be like, "Well, you smell like an old booze bag, for one. You don't understand PC hardware." And then you're just gonna walk away and grab his chick and walk out the door. Stallion style. For all the nitty-gritty, squeeze-a-titty technical specifications of the Steam Deck and all the latest and greatest news that'll keep you sloppy in the gamer regions, go ahead and keep it locked here at Gamer Heaven. And I'm going to make a separate video announcing this, but Gamer Heaven now does have merch. Full-blown merch store. Designed all the gear myself. It's pretty damn sick. Pictures on screen here. Drop in the comment section below your guys' opinion of the Steam Deck. Not if the opinion is that, you know, it's going to cap out at 30 frames per second. You can take that and shove it where the sun don't shine, sister. If you guys enjoyed the video or excited about the Stream Deck or like the way I walk, talk, or smell on a Saturday night, liking the video helps it to get seen by more people. A lot of news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, and honest peripheral reviews. This is Turtle Beach's first controller. Will be available for public purchase August 1st. And I'm about to do a hands-on behind-the-scenes review with it. Yeah, getting sent stuff early now. Haha, yes. I'll see you tomorrow, because I upload daily.